Hey guys, how's it going? It's Daniel here from King Realty. Hope you're doing well. Just a quick video for you guys, just giving you an update of what's been going on in our real estate market over the last little while. Topics that we're going to talk about. One of them being some of the fraud cases that we've been hearing lately. Apparently, we've had more than 30 instances of homes being sold without the owner's knowledge here in Canada, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that because there were some stories that came out on the news recently here in the GTA. So just a little bit of a note on that, and the fact that this is not like a new thing, but also explaining who is being targeted in situations like that and why it's super rare for most people to be in this type of situation. The other thing is on the 25th, so a few days back, we had an increase in our overnight lending rate from the Bank of Canada, which is impacting variable mortgages. So we'll talk about what buyer clients are doing right now for their closings and what type of products they're getting into, whether it be fixed or variable. There's a flip tax that came into effect, as well as a foreign buyers ban as the beginning of this year, 2023. And there's also a new vacant home tax and a new process that homeowners have to abide by here in Toronto to make sure you're avoiding any sort of fees, and that's including me. And other than that, one last thing here is about high interest and some things that might be helpful in case you're not so comfortable with the increased payments on a monthly basis for housing over the last year, basically. These little increases are maybe a little bit harder for people to deal with compared to others, and so we're just going to talk to you about some options that you may have versus putting yourself in a really difficult situation, and those things are possible. So let's start off by talking about the fraud stuff. So just to let you know, most people here that own their home and that live inside their home as a primary residence aren't necessarily going to be impacted by this. Typically, these are like crime organizations that target homes that are vacant, and they can figure this out or find this out through various different ways. But without speculating here, the point is that they do find out that there's a vacant house, let's say somewhere in Toronto, and they know that the owners may not necessarily be in the country often or at all. And so those are typically the people who are targeted, because it's easy for these criminals to falsify IDs, documents that make them look like as if they're the owners of these properties, and then they go to regular real estate agents such as myself, and maybe people who are less likely to look into the identity of their client, especially if they're looking to give them a listing. I mean, imagine coming up to a random realtor and saying, hey, I need to list my house ASAP, you seem like a really reasonable guy, why don't I give you the listing at whatever commission rate that you say. And as an agent, you're probably like, well, amazing, it just fell on my lap. How lucky am I, right? And you go ahead and list the property. You think it's normal, it's a vacant property anyways. The criminal goes as far as even saying, hey, Mr. Realtor, can you please recommend maybe a lawyer that might be able to help me out with the situation? Lawyer goes ahead and the lawyer does have some requirements to look into identity and things like that as well, over and above a real estate agent, more so than a real estate agent, I would say. And in that case, still, they don't see any red flags. The IDs are super really good quality, and you can't even really tell. And they go ahead and sign the deal. They find a buyer, and everything goes through. They even get the profit funds to put it into a bank account, which they've connected to wherever they set it up. Money goes overseas, and guy disappears, never to be seen again. And so this type of stuff has been happening for many years, and it was very popular, and not popular, but many years ago it was something that was on the news pretty often, because there was like a flurry of these type of things. And they see them come in phases, because obviously technology improves and we have safeguards against these type of crimes. But then criminals can become more sophisticated, and we have more technology, and maybe now we're at a point where they can easily not maybe so easy, but they're able to, through certain ways, to be able to do these type of crimes. So something probably that's not going to happen to you as a homeowner, or you're probably never going to be involved in your lifetime. But know that these things do happen, and I'm sure because of what's been happening recently, the people who are in charge of protecting us against this type of fraud are going to learn new ways to be able to counteract these type of things. So we'll see how kind of that goes. Okay. Next thing, guys, is January 25th. Few days back, today's the 30th actually, we actually had an increase from the Bank of Canada. They increased their overnight lending rate by 0.25%, so a quarter basis point. And that was kind of anticipated. Reason is because maybe like a month earlier, we had actually really decent unemployment numbers. We were employed, and they're actually a lot better than it was anticipated. Believe it or not, although it seems so grim, the preference was to have worse unemployment in order to counteract inflation, because the main goal is to bring inflation down. If people are employed, that means that they're spending, that means the economy is moving, and it may not be as good for our inflation numbers. And for that reason, likely, in addition to maybe a lot of other things, this is why the Bank of Canada decided to increase rates once again. This is the 10th time in a row, guys. I mean, this is not new news. We've had almost a year full of increases from the Bank of Canada. And I think, based on what they were saying, this could be the last increase. However, they don't close the door at all in the idea that it could happen again in the future if inflation, again, is still not being tamed. So although at the moment it could be that we may not see another Bank of Canada increase in the next decision, the door is wide open for it to continue to happen in case inflation does not come down through this method and many others that they put in place. Typically, when you increase rates, it takes quite a bit of time. There's a lag between you doing that change and it actually impacting. So this is why we got to kind of let it breathe, right? And give it a moment to see where this all goes. And what that also means is that rates, such as variable rates, are going to continue to be high, likely for the remainder of the year until inflation starts coming down, which could be the whole entire year. We may not see any rate drops until maybe even 2024. We'll have to see kind of how that goes. Now, the nice thing is that rates may kind of hold, right? Which means that we have a bit of stability in the marketplace. It won't be as volatile. And that sometimes is what scares most people, because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if it's going to increase more or if it's drop again in the future. But if we do see a couple of decisions where we're kind of flat and things aren't holding in terms of the rate, then it's easier for them to make decisions and kind of be okay with the current environment and move forward with whatever the plans they have. If we're talking real estate, then maybe that is buying and selling homes. Okay. Now, what are our clients doing? It really depends on the situation and the person's preference, but I'm seeing shorter terms. So I'm seeing maybe a 1 or 2 fixed term, which are hovering around the 6% mark. Actually, fixed terms, believe it or not, are actually lower than variable terms at the moment. If you do go variable, people are still going into those 3, 4, 5 year variable rates. They're going to be in the low 6s or maybe high 5%. And the idea is with them is that they're thinking we're kind of at the top here when it comes to increases in rates, and so they may not be paying much more. If it does go up a bit, they are comfortable with that and understand that that's a possibility. But they're also banking on the fact that maybe towards the end of that term, maybe in year 2, 3, 4, or 5, we're going to see lower rates. And if that's the case, then obviously as a variable mortgage, your rate is going to drop as well. So we might be right now feeling the peak of like this interest, burden that homeowners are facing at the moment. If you have a variable mortgage, you're paying a lot more than you were approximately a year ago. And that's huge. That's huge. It could be $500. It could be more than $500 per month, sometimes even closer to $1,000. So it's not an insignificant difference. But anyone getting into the market right now, as well as also paying a high payment too. But what I want you to remember is that these are temporary rates. We could be holding on to these rates for over 12 months, but it won't be multiple years for sure. Over the last 30 years, our average interest rate's been in the 3.5 to 4% range. And the likelihood is that we're going to get back to that range again. And if we do in the years to come, then you're going to have a much lower payment, and you'd be used to paying this higher price. But in the future, it's actually going to drop, believe it or not. So see how that goes. Now, a couple of things have been implemented at the beginning of this year: flipping tax, the foreign buyer ban, and also the vacant home tax. So a couple of things on those. Flipping tax is just this, okay? In the past, intention mattered. If you were buying a primary residence and you, let's say, moved in for a bit and things have changed for you, and you sell that property, typically you're not going to get charged any sort of tax on the profit made of that sale. However, to discourage flipping, that has changed. And this year, you actually do have to pay business income on profit if you do sell a property in less than 1 year. That does not matter what type of property it is, which kind of sucks, but it is the truth. So even if it's a primary residence, something that you plan to move into, you sell that within less than 1 year, you are going to be paying taxes on the profit that you made off that sale. Okay, so keep in mind that you should probably be holding on to a property for a year, or you should probably be making sure that if you're deciding to buy a property that you are going to be living there for at least a year in order to avoid this thing altogether. When it comes to the actual flippers, it depends if you're a pro or not, really, at the end of the day. I mean, if you're a pro, then for many years now, you probably should be either, doing your business ventures in a corporation, which is outside of your name. And if it is under your name, then you probably already are paying business tax on the income that you're making off flipping, because you're treating that as a business, which is the way it should be. If you're thinking that you're gonna buy and flip homes without paying business income tax on that profit, and that's the way you're operating, it's only gonna last so long, because the CRA does track when you sell homes. They do track when you buy homes. They're going to easily be able to make a case that you're doing this for business if you're doing multiple purchase and sale transactions over a given period of time. They can actually even reach back years into the past if you continue to do this, and charge you tax on everything that you've actually bought and sold in the past too. That has happened, and it could happen if you're not operating correctly. Okay. Foreign buyer tax, what you should know at the end of the day is that if you don't have a Canadian citizenship, if you weren't born here, if you don't have a permanent residence, if you don't have a nomination or a handful of other, those are pretty much it. There might be one or two other reasons why you can purchase without having citizenship or being Canadian, then you're not able to buy in Canada for a 2-year period. And they're doing this in order to, again, dissuade, people in other countries that have a lot of money to come into our country, buy homes, and sometimes not even use them or rent them or anything, just more so to hold money like a bank account almost in our country. They're trying to dissuade people from doing that, and the whole reason why this came to be is because our prices were going up, and they thought that the foreign ownership and foreign buyers had a material difference on the increases in those prices, and so this is where this vacant tax came in. This is where this foreign buyer ban, or even the foreign buyer tax as well, was implemented, just to kind of deter people from doing that type of purchase. And so for the next 2 years, you're not able to make a purchase. However, if you're in the country and you're going to be here for a while, if you're applying for a PR, if you're in the process of getting citizenship, any of those things apply to you, then there definitely is the possibility of buying property. You don't have to wait for 2 years. You can definitely buy. And actually, over the last year or so, we've had a lot of people come our way. First-time home buyers that's are newer to Canada, have employment here, make really good money, really low credit, etc. But they're waiting for their PR, or they're about to get their PR. If this is you, definitely message us below. We have a link down there for a Calendly, or in this email you can make a response, because we can talk a little bit more about a plan that I've kind of been able to develop for guys in your situation, and we've been pretty successful in helping you guys get into your first home. So definitely get in touch with that one. Okay. Other than that, if you do not have these things on the go, you don't plan to be on here in Canada, and you don't have any citizenship goals or applications, then unfortunately we're renting here in the Canada, at least for the next 2 years. Let's see what happens towards the end of that period, and see if they reinstate it or if it goes away forever. We'll have to wait and see. Okay. Now, the other one is the vacant home tax. This is something that applies to all of us here in Ontario for sure. And you probably got a mailer, a little yellow paper. I wish I had it. Basically, you need to make a declaration. Are you living, is this property that you own occupied or not? Because if it isn't, then the government is actually going to start taxing you for not being in your own property. But if you do fill out this declaration before February 2nd of 2023, and you're in the clear, they're going to see that you made a declaration that there is an occupant here, and you're not subject to a tax. Keep in mind, guys, that there is a fee if you do make this declaration after the 2nd of February. So if you haven't done that yet, check on the toronto.ca website. There's actually a pretty easy online way to make your declaration, and that way you're in the clear before February 2nd. So make sure you're doing that, guys. Actually, we'll put a link down low, so you can use that as a resource too. Okay. Now, guys, one last note here when it comes to high interest. We're talking about this because of the increased Bank of Canada rate a few days back. Some people may not be super comfortable with this change. I did mention some people are paying hundreds, if not maybe even $1,000 above what they were paying only just a few months ago, and that could make people struggle. And obviously it's going to impact people a lot more than others. And you got options. I would say that if you're feeling the crunch and you know that you're not going to be able to hold on and be able to make these payments for another year or more, it could make sense to really start thinking about maybe even selling the property. I mean, definitely before the lender or the bank gets in touch with you in case mortgage payments are missed. That's definitely a worse scenario where they go into a power of sale, and they have the right to take the property to the market and see if they can find a buyer because of the missed payments. Before any of that happens, definitely get in touch with us, because we can develop a game plan, whether it be for helping you with finances, or maybe it is just developing a plan to see what the value of your property is, if you can transition maybe into a property that's has a lower monthly commitment, or setting up even ideas of renting parts of your home in order to generate an extra income and be able to help you with those monthly payments as well. So any of those options are things that we can help people with, that we have experience really in all of them. So if you are in a position where you think that the next few months could be difficult monthly payment wise, and you're kind of worried about maybe options and things that you have available to you, get in touch with us, and we'll be able to make that clarity for you, and make sure that we're helping make the best decisions possible for you and the family. Okay. Guys, just a quick video. I don't know how quick this is. Actually, I probably talked quite a bit, but we are covering a lot of things here, so I'm hoping you guys are doing well. And let me know what your comments are. I want to know what you think about some of these changes, you know, the foreign buyer tax, the vacant home tax. Let me know what you think about these fraud sales, the high interest rates that we're going through right now. If you have any questions about what I'm predicting for, you know, the next year here in the GTA, whether it comes to, you know, the value of your home, or if it's a good time to buy, you know, it really just depends on your current situation. My answer might surprise you, actually. So definitely get in touch and let us know if you have any questions at all about these topics. I'd love to have a conversation with you and help you out with your decisions. All right. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and take care. We'll talk soon. See ya.